This is an easy beat, right? To just nod your head.
Yeah. Because I do remember when Rock was young.
Yeah. There actually is a dance, I think, to the Crocodile Rock. I don't know it, but I don't know it. Have you seen him in concert ever?
No, I'd love to, or would have loved to, I guess.
I mean, he'll be back on another farewell tour, I'm sure, once he needs the cash. But I've seen him twice, and it's a good time. It is a good time. It's a fun show.
Yeah, that's what I imagine. I mean, he is a rock and pop icon, right?
Yes.
So,
yes.
Yeah.
Good morning.
Good morning. I can't believe I'm here I can't believe I just did that with you. I can't believe I'm here. Good morning.
All of your dreams have come true now. I mean, there's really, the rest of life is downhill, obviously.
I'd like to announce my retirement.
Good morning, everyone. As you can see, George is here. Jackie is not. First, though, obviously, we should probably let everybody know today, if you want to be appropriately social media harassing, today is Jackie's birthday. So please be sure to jump online, tag her, wish her the very best. She is likely already drunk in Waco somewhere. So this is that's a rumor, but I'm gonna say there's good money to be made with that bet.
Trust your instincts.
Because there are, I think, some places open really on the outskirts of Waco, like downtown Waco, they have rules, but outskirts of Waco, it's all night kind of stuff, right? That happens there.
So you have experience, it sounds like.
Yeah. When she watches this back, she is going to be furious, but I love it. So happy birthday, Jackie.
Happy birthday.
Great day. But I'm pumped that you are here with me today. Like, this is really, really awesome. Right?
Thanks. I'm pumped to be here.
Yeah. I mean, we've known each other. I'm a fan. I just love what you do and how you've been involved in the community for as long as you've been involved. So I love this because I think it gives people a chance to sort of, what I hope, right, to hear from you as like a human being instead of only tech. We're going to talk tech, but instead of only tech, right? So I don't know that everybody knows like family geography. Like, you want to fill people in on where you were raised and what you got, who are the people you pay for, that kind of stuff.
Sure. Well, I'm a fan, and I'm always lurking on this show, and so I'm
really lurking.
It's a real honor to be here. So yeah, George LaRocque. My business is HRTech, and I've been in the industry like over 30 years. I really grew up. It's all I've done. It was great timing. Like for many of us, we were there to sort of watch the staffing industry rise, watch the tech supporting HR and talent acquisition rise. And I know you asked for more personal stuff, but it all started up in the Boston area, where I spent my time as a practitioner, coming out of the staffing side onto the HR side. So my roots are there. I was just up there, took the kids to visit my parents, who are both around. And my mom will turn 90. My dad's 92. So awesome. Yeah, and they're just sharp as tacks. And
the town threw you a parade. What is this parade that you're marching in?
It was Memorial Day. It was just we made it back for my youngest is a junior Girl Scout. I guess next year maybe she'll be a full-fledged Girl Scout. But they march, and
I didn't know there was levels. There's a junior Girl Scout versus
starts with like, I think there's one she was in below brownies, like Daisy Scout or something. Like, yeah,
I
yeah,
know. My
yeah.
sister was a brownie for like half a minute, but other than that, I don't.
Well, they got to sell you different vests. Like you
Oh
can't.
my
You gotta
gosh,
every
yes.
couple of years you got to buy a new vest,
And
and you
that
got.
brownie uniform was like poop. It was absolute poop color. Like it was awful. And I mean, those who are listening, I'm not knocking the Girl Scouts. It's not what I'm doing. I don't know because I didn't go personally through it. And neither one of my girls neither one was interested in Girl Scouts at all. So this was like a Girl Scout related portion to the parade. Is that why she had to do that?
Yeah, they just march in it. They get. It's a real small town. So like when the parade goes by, we're talking like maybe it takes 8 minutes to go by, but they've got the high school band. I don't think the middle school band was in there this year, but the high school band, some fire trucks, and then different civic organizations, local town stuff. And so what they all do is throw candy at the kids on the
Yes, that
sidewalk.
is the
So
best part of it.
so that's a big deal. So then also here we've got a one home from college. She was a freshman. She's a rising sophomore at UNC. So she got back a few weeks ago and is, adjusting to the fact that, there is like, all the freedom you have there, you
Yeah.
still have freedom here, but it's a little different. But when you go back home, you remember like the
Yes.
transitioning, and
Yes.
it's all good. She's great. I heard her. We went to my middle. He's on the high school tennis team, and they're in the state tournament right now. She was there.
Awesome.
She bumped. Yeah, it's great. And she bumped into. She was with us. She didn't avoid us. She sat with us and everything. And
She misses you.
one of her teachers was the coach, and I heard. And so we're walking out, and she's, hey, Mr. Goldstein, um, and I'm like giving her space, and I heard her say, "Oh yeah, I've learned to appreciate my family more than I ever thought I did." While I was, yeah, and it
Oh
was
my
just
gosh.
like, why was I not recording that? But
And what, like, did you get a little verklempt or what?
oh
What?
yeah, yeah.
Oh
I
my
mean,
God.
yeah, it's just a moment, the moments
Yeah.
like that are just great.
Are you an
And
easy crier or no?
I can be. I can be. It depends on like the day and what's happened. I can. I'm a good stealthy one. So like I'll
Oh,
be, tearing
great.
up, and you might like I don't think people know. Nobody ever says anything, like, and I
Yes.
just
Now,
sort of.
I'm just going to be looking for those stealth moves, all right, and just come up next to you and hold your hand.
Well,
I'm
you
just
didn't give me an agenda today, but now now I'm like, where are we going? So yeah, and then I've I have an older son who's in Boston. Well, he lives in New Hampshire and he's in Boston.
okay.
Works in Boston, and I want to say before I tell you what he does for a living, I had nothing to do with it. He works at a staffing firm.
Oh my God.
Yes. So I'm like, so he all on his own, he went through, he excelled in financial services for a few years. And then he went through a process of figuring out like, what do I want to do? And he called me up and he's like, I've been getting calls from these staffing companies. And I know there might be some osmosis there, but it's great. It's a way different industry than back when I was in
Yeah,
it. Yeah.
totally.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Before, actually, I want to ask a couple things. But Joe, I'm so glad you're here. Yes, we miss Jackie as well. I'm not going to read between the lines and take that as an insult that you're disappointed to log in and see me without Jackie. But that's cool, Joe. Always love seeing you, my friend. How old is your son that's in Boston?
28.
Because my Olivia, my oldest daughter, is there. She's doing law school there.
Oh, okay.
And she'll be 23. So, that's not too far apart in terms of age. Is he seeing somebody, or, should we make a love connection for the two of them?
He is seeing somebody. But he's a great friend. He's a great person to know.
Yeah. I mean, That's fine. She's actually a great friend as well. So it'll be fun to have them like meet up or
Yeah.
something just to hang. And I just need to look at you, George. You're getting some love. Joe is happy that at least the substitute is handsome, which
Oh, thanks.
again,
Thank you.
I'm
Thank
going to read between the lines.
you.
I am not. So thanks, Joe, once again. So lovely
No,
when
but we
Joe
know
is,
that's not true,
well,
John.
you're,
So
yeah, let's not make up things. Um, the the interesting thing is with adult kids, right, for both of us, and I think it's funny like watching them make career related decisions, right?
yeah.
And I don't know how much you bite your tongue, or if it's like a balance, like if you bite your tongue and your wife doesn't. And so, my wife definitely keeps most of her opinions to herself. I have a hard time not letting my face at least show. I may not say it, but I'm like, oh, that's sounds like a great idea. They know that means it's not a great idea, right? That's what I think. Because I'm trying to like plow through. Is there tension with the adult kids for you with like some of the choices that they might be making and the way in which you give advice? How do you figure that out?
I that's a we could spend the rest of the
Yeah,
time
right.
exploring how to figure it out. I think I really try to let them make their own decisions and kind of be guardrails, if you will.
Mm,
And so I wouldn't say we hold back, but I wouldn't say that we've never been like the helicopter parent or any of that. So um, I'm more about like I'm the decision itself, and if you're going to move in a certain direction, go make your own mistakes. But like, let's think about like the thought process that is getting you there. Like, are you thinking it through?
yeah,
And so what I really enjoy is when they come to me for the like,
yeah,
then it's like, okay, yeah, that's a
yeah,
great moment. But I try I try to be there and be present and allow them to go their own way. The worst I feel like the more proactive you are with asserting an opinion, it's more like they repel from that.
oh my gosh, yeah,
So yeah, so
yeah.
I want to be I want to be a guide and not that's my role, I think.
I think it's hard. I think I agree with you. I think it's hard for, and I'd be curious to hear from others that are watching this morning. I mean, I'm creeping on the chat. Sean, I know you have adult kids. Not that I promise other people who are listening, like I don't have dossiers on everybody. I just am looking to know some, right, folks? Sean, I know has adult kids as well. Kai, I know, see you're here, right? So, when you have an HR background in whatever capacity HR is. There's something career oriented, right? We do some coaching or mentoring. We do assessment based work, like wherever your vibe comes from. And there's a few different ways to come at it from HR. Like it's hard not to sort of approach your kids that way, both because you know something professionally and you love them and don't want them to
Yeah,
like
yeah,
make bad choices, right? Like it's
yeah,
hard.
yeah. Especially when I would say where I really am biting my tongue is when I'm getting educated at the dinner table about the job market.
Oh,
Like, or about the process of finding a job or interviewing, and it's just like, okay,
yeah.
like,
Yeah, Dad, it's so different now. Is
yeah,
it? Yeah.
yeah,
Tell me all about it. I don't,
yeah.
that I did an interview and it was AI. Was it really? That's shocking.
Yeah, it's those are, but that's I think every parent has their own moments, like just like that.
I
But
don't think we're, like I'm tough on the personal relationship type thing. Like I'm like, so what's happening? Why, when am I going to have grandkids? I go right to the end of what my goal is.
Okay.
My girls are like, what? No, what? No. Talking about the job market and stuff though, and I know that we this morning is kind of subtitled, with HRTech, like when is the juice worth the squeeze? And it's funny because I didn't know that we were going to kind of start where we started, honestly, because once again, this show is unscripted. It really, if you haven't been able to figure out, you're probably not watching. But
I mean, I found out the title of the show on LinkedIn. Just to validate, like there
there's
is
nothing. I do want to. I picked on poor Sean. This is probably the quote. Right?
Yeah.
If we say something, we're morons. But I do, Sean, let me affirm, probably it is about you. I don't think that's true for everybody. Right? But no, I would have, like, you talked about your daughter's tennis coach, or, that. My kids would come home and say, oh, coach said this. And I'm like, what? For 5 years, I've been saying this to you about whatever. And they're like, yeah, but coach said it. And you're like, oh, yeah, phenomenal.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So I want to talk about the slap-on sticker AI, or generative AI, that's now on everybody's backdrop for conferences. It's like the same backdrops. They just went and on Canva and then got them printed on sticker material and just slapped them on to the backdrops of every.
Okay.
I mean, come on, I'm not lying completely. It's like, I'm like, that AI, that didn't used to be there on that backdrop, right? Is it really worth this? Is everything AI related, like, really worth it? I feel like some people are starting to buy things that are just trendy, maybe, than useful.
Yeah. There's a ton of hype, and in a very interesting, we're watching this play out so quickly. Like there hasn't really been any tech wave in our space or any space that's taken over as quickly. It's all of the usual patterns are out the window. But one thing that is true is that those who have waited, whether they're on the customer side or the tech provider side, are actually seeing, great returns in that, because we're still figuring this all out. I mean, the regulations aren't even fully out yet. The OFCCP came out with its initial guidance 2 weeks ago, and it's very broad as an initial, like, but there's one line when I wrote about it. The one line that stood out was something to the effect of, companies should not rely on algorithms and technology to make hiring decisions, and they should be careful to have humans, basically saying humans in the loop. And that throws a wrinkle into a lot of things as far as where the tech is headed. Then you've got the EU with they've put anything employment related on their high risk category.
Yes.
So as that gets, that's a little more detailed. I haven't dug all through it, but as we understand that better, anybody that's been waiting is in the catbird seat now, because you have the ability to be not only more compliant. It's not just about compliance, but also let this technology evolve. Most of what we saw was gimmicky.
Yeah.
So, there's some players, some tech providers who had AI in the background doing some interesting things, but these were algorithms that were speeding along the computing process or a matching process or something like that. This generative stuff, it's like, help us write an email, help us write a job description, all this, that's going to be in every app you use, doing anything in your life, anywhere from Google and Microsoft email, and search to any business tool, anything.
It's
Um,
already in there. I mean, you
yeah,
can't, you go to type something even in your search bar and it's like, you
yeah,
know,
yeah,
AI is right there. Like, is this what you mean? Is that, that kind of stuff. And I wonder if, I mean, again, how much of that AI counts towards some of the things that I think we're seeing from a compliance standpoint? If I use AI to write my job description
mhm,
and then use that job description to post for a role, is there potential embedded bias in that job description that now might influence who may be considered for a particular position? I mean, certainly it's possible. And so I'm curious to kind of see how this thread gets pulled and what it means. I mean, obviously we've known for a little while, like places like New York City, they've said you can't make hiring decisions based upon algorithms and AI. They have zero idea about how to enforce it,
right,
or I mean, zero idea about how to enforce it.
right,
Because they don't say it's wrong to use it. You're allowed to have it be a part of the process, just not the reason for it. Well, how are we proving that, right? Like, once you
right.
see a score, how much of that really impacts my brain, even if I'm doing other things? That's hard to sort of convict somebody of, right?
Yeah, and I'm not anti AI. I really
No,
do
no,
think,
yeah,
as we talk, like I do think it's worth it. I do think there's some amazing stuff that's happening and coming to the market, and there are employers doing some amazing things. But it's so on the bias point, humans haven't been the best algorithms themselves when it comes to bias. So I think
what,
there's, I
what?
think,
Tell
so
me more.
yeah, so I think there's the key is doing the work and making sure that you've implemented these tools in a way where you're not using like a broad chat GPT large language model to infuse your hiring process. You're using something that's been built for your hiring process, and has rails on it,
Yeah.
and you've got humans observing. It's compliance isn't about being perfect. It's about making all the efforts to get it right and improve, right? So I think that's I think that's one of the things that's overlooked a lot. Is it doesn't mean you're going to be able to just subscribe to a product, buy a product, and you're done. There's a
Well,
lot
and
of
I think
effort.
it's easier when you think about like our kids.
Mhm.
So I'll just keep weaving that through, right? When you think about our kids applying for a job, and if there's like an AI part to it, we're going to be a bit critical of it because we're like, well, how did it help you? How did it hurt you? Dependent upon the results, right? But with what was written by the OFCCP and some of the other things that are currently out there, they're very heavy on the hiring part of things. There's really not much about the employee life cycle part of things, right? So
Right.
from a performance management standpoint, from a promotion related process standpoint, the learning skill focused programs that are out there to help teach people, those things aren't really checked at this point. They're not really being monitored. And so it seems like we put a lot of effort on the front door, but not a lot of perspective on the living room, dining room, and kitchen of living
Mm.
in the company. You know what I mean? Like there's
Yeah.
a lot to that.
Yeah. I think that's coming, and that's not because I have seen anything that says, "Oh, we're working on it," but um, I just, right now, a lot of vendors think, "Oh, we'll be fine because we self audit, or we have,
Mm,
we publish our algorithm. We're fine." And that's not the definition of being fine in this case. And I think most of these providers, they've never had to support a customer that's gone through an OFCCP audit and understand what that means. And this is the first time that One of the real changes here when you read that guidance is the tech providers are also on the hook now.
Yes.
So it's not just employers,
Yes.
because previously it was about process and about decision making and about how you make those decisions and what is used to inform those decisions. It's still about all of that, but there's an understanding that this tech is in some cases taking over that process. So there's a whole level of partnership that you need with your provider and transparency that a lot of these more modern providers or newer providers don't really understand and haven't had to deal with in a long time. And I think it's coming. Like we've seen lawsuits
Yes.
already around the hiring process, and I
Yep.
think the minute you have people who feel that they've been overlooked and the machine overlooked them, it's going to bring it, to the fore, whether that's about their comp, about their promotion, about their anything, considered for anything or treated fairly in any way. I think it's just a matter of time.
But I think it's different when I agree with you. I think it's different though. Like, so let's talk about the big players and the small players in some ways, right? Like if you're ADP and you're trying to embed, various types of AI into your workflows,
Yeah.
or Workday or Dayforce or whatever it is, right? On the big side, if you're Tyler and Sven and Connor with a K working out of some dorm room, which I just absolutely destroyed people who are who are building tech right now, who that's their name. I'm not thinking of anyone in particular, but I'm just thinking of, the trendy names, and they're in their dorm room and building these like crazy products that are really amazing. They don't really have, I don't know, an appreciation for the liability that they hold in selling this to a potential employer and how that may come back to them, right? They're just like brilliant people building these tech products and they're not really back. So it might, I don't know, like, might this sort of keep people from building stuff like this, the more that we understand how much liability may fall? Like, I wonder if it's going to hurt innovation in some ways, because now the people who are in the dorm room building this stuff are like, well, wait a minute, I can't afford the liability that this might bring to me. Does that make sense? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I wonder if that's a negative.
It does make sense. It's very logical. It hasn't held anybody back from building a product. I can't speak to other spaces, but
so far, yeah.
And I can't tell you how many founders I've met who show me what they think is the first original variation on something, and it's like, I like, did you Google this? Did you?
I just had one of those. It's so funny you're saying it. I just had one of those, and they're lovely. And their names are not far off of names I just mentioned. So sorry if you're listening, but like it, and they're super excited. And in my mind, I'm like, I know two other products that are already basically doing this.
Probably been around a while too. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. It's always been like that. And you need a certain, founders need to have a certain amount of like healthy hubris in order to keep going, because they're up against incumbents. But where that falls apart is when you haven't looked around, clearly haven't talked to enough customers or potential customers, and or discovered Google yet, so that there's a landscape out there. There are different ways to solve these problems. I mean, it's as basic as like, we've solved, the hiring challenge. How did you do that? Oh, well, we use an assessment. Oh, really? Like, stuff. It's as basic as that. It's And
part of that, I think, is the crime of Shark Tank, in the sense of, like, everybody wants to build something. Like when you and I are at these conferences,
Mhm.
and we're at this in the startup area of things, whatever they call it in all the conferences. I know it's varies, but these one or two people that are at these mini booths and demonstrating this product that they've poured their heart and soul into, and part of it is they're hoping that it's a great idea and that they'll get massive funding and or scooped up by a larger company. Like, it's this Shark Tank sort of entrepreneurial dream to get picked up in that way. I don't know. I mean, is that slowing down, number one? And number two, like, that it's got to be like the major leagues. The amount of product that's worked on and put out, the percentage that actually hit it and move forward has to be pretty small.
Yeah. Generally, the rule of thumb is if you look at the VC metrics, it's 10% are successful. A big percentage are what we call zombie businesses, where they sort of tread water. They are they're break even or just a little better, and they're able to keep some people employed and stay out there, win enough deals to cover their customer churn, and they're out there for a long time. And others get acquired or just disappear, and that's generally what. And there's a lot of data on that supports that. There was something in the last year or so. There was a study on all the startups across all the markets, and that rang true. Is it slowing down? If you look at in our space, I can speak to our space.
Yeah.
In 2021 and the first half of 2022, we were seeing, both in the number of investments, VC investments, and in the amount of VC invested, 4 to 5 times anything we had seen before. Now, if you look at 2023 and the first quarter of 2024 and our current run rate, we're pretty much on the same pace that we were in 2018, 2019, 2020. So we're back to, and those were like crazy days.
Yes.
We thought that was nuts, and we didn't know what was coming.
Aren't you surprised by that, though?
I am surprised. I mean, nothing really surprises me that much.
Well, right. Well, I mean, right.
But yeah, what's more surprising to me is, while the numbers are what they are, I'm having I spend most of my time sharing that perspective and putting things into perspective. We're in this hangover from what were anomaly years, anomalies, like just crazy,
Yes.
a crazy spike. And most folks are responding to it as though everything's dried up, and it is more difficult. There are companies that were hurt because of this, companies that needed to raise more money and couldn't. I'm not minimizing any of that.
No, right.
But we are at a place where it's there's a lot of interesting stuff happening. There are new companies entering the market. The market's still largely a US market when it comes to the startups entering the space, but it's more global now. We see startups in parts of the world that we hadn't seen them before. So it's not all bad news. It's again, it's just perspective. And that is, and not everybody's failing or floundering. Some companies, depending, some are, and some are still doing well. And they almost feel, as you would almost hope, like there's some humility about it. Like they're not out touting their horn because the market is difficult. But there are, look, companies still need help in certain areas.
Absolutely.
And they invest in that. So,
yes. And I think it's hard to, so it's interesting that you say that, right? So, first of all, I want to make sure I say, thanks to everybody who's watching and commenting and all that good stuff. Thank you so much. George, I absolutely think you need to work on a book like How to Not Be a Zombie Business, like something like that. That's because
Okay.
I
All
just
right.
think that's a really, it's like a kind of like the zombie business has a lot of visual to it as well. Like I think that's a good one. I even hashtagged it for you this morning. So the idea of kind of being a business that I don't know, maybe not getting the amount of funding that once happened. Like I felt like a couple of years ago, it was a free for all, and valuations were crazy. Like some of you who are watching, like you worked for those some of those companies that wound up, like being valued at some crazy number, and you're again part of the dream, I think, for some people, particularly on the startup side of things. And I don't know how many people who are watching, if you were a part of startup, make sure you shout out that you have a startup background in the chat. But like your hope was my shares, the equity that I have in this will convert into like Facebook, and I'll be the janitor at Facebook who wound up making whatever it was, $2 million or something like that. Like just these crazy numbers, and you're like, yes, that's me. But they're such one-offs. Like that's not a dime a dozen. Like there's such rare stories of equity really producing something. There's a guy, and I don't know if you follow him yet. There's a guy on, and I'm gonna bring up his account. I think you actually would be really interested, George, in following him. But there's a guy named Grant who is kind of taken Instagram by storm. And it's very fascinating because I don't know why he's taking the internet by storm or here he is. He's a software engineer, this dude. His name is Grant Magdens. I don't know if I can, right? So this is Grant. This is Grant, right? I'm giving him a shout out. Do you see how many followers he has? Like a week ago, he had 700.
Oh, wow.
So, I mean, he's just telling stories, tons of videos about his experience as a software engineer and building businesses and building apps and all this stuff and all the companies that he was a part of and the promised equity and all this stuff. And he got paid out on one that was really nothing by the time other investors came in, and they do what they do. And then for another one, he got $5,000. That's how much his shares wound up being worth. And so you take a low pay with the promise of this equity because you're building something. And I'm not saying this is true for all companies. That's not my point. But the idea of like when we're in this sort of pseudo recessionary environment that we're kind of in, if you're a younger person, I want to make sure I say it's not that old people like me can't be taken advantage of, but I'm much more like of a curmudgeon now. Like I'm bitter and doubting of everybody equally. So when someone's like, "Oh yeah, this is easily going to be $1 million business," I'm like, "I doubt it." Like I'm already like negative about the whole thing, right? But if you're 22 years old, 23 years old, you're like, yes, this is awesome. Yeah, I'll take 3/4 of my comp in equity. Absolutely. And then it's not really worth much. I don't know. And I think the VC and PE kind of vibe to this is like, yeah, we don't want to sort of sell this line of crap, right? Because I think they're starting to be held to the carpet a little bit around why is this happening, right? The company is not worth $5 million. It's worth 50 cents. Like how did this happen? And I know you see that, right, with these valuations.
Yeah. And to bring it back to the AI, is it worth the squeeze thing? We're going to see a lot of that happen with some of the startups that have rushed in with, what is a feature and not a product because they've rushed into this AI game. We're going to see some, good ideas for features that don't get what they need to build out a product, and folks are going to, it's going to happen. It's going to happen. the numbers that I gave you earlier, the success rate isn't going to jump from 10 to 50%. It's still going to be 10%. So 90%
Yeah.
are going to experience that one way or another. But I will say that when you're at the beginning of your career, you do have, most people have you have more room to take a little risk, and learn and get experience.
Yep.
The first time I learned about, when my education on stock options getting diluted and not being worth what they were when you were given them was
Yep.
when the company I was working for exited, and I did the math. And it was a learning experience that helped me for the rest of my career. But also that experience beyond the stock side of things, the option side of things, that was like, a 5 or 6 year run that was like 4 fast-paced MBA tracks. Like it was the way you
Yeah.
built. I got a lot out of that experience, and I had to,
Yep.
once I got over my bitterness, I was I was able to appreciate that. So that was
I'm
because it
still in
does.
mine.
Yeah. You do, you get to, I've gotten to the end of the process and said, yeah, no, I'm not going to exercise those options. I'm not going to, no, just keep them because it's after taxes. I don't want to write a check in order to just say that I got something out of this.
Right.
I don't want, so it's a, that is the world of startups. It's fun,
Yeah.
exciting, risky, and I think it's about looking at where you are and what kind of risk you have the capacity to take, and as an individual, and then going for it, but making sure you're learning from it.
So if your kids came to you and said, I'm going to get involved with a startup, what would your advice be?
I'd have a lot of questions. Like I said, Matt, yeah, you're holding me to my, you got to let them take their own, make their own mistakes, take their own chances. But luckily, I think I could provide a lot of perspective. Maybe a lot of parents couldn't, where, let's talk about
Yeah.
how much funding do they have? When did they raise it? Ask these questions about, how much money they're spending, et cetera, that would help them. But I would, look, I did it. And, I had, we all have varying degrees of success or lack thereof in our backgrounds. And I think, I think it's a good way to go. It's about your capacity to operate in that environment as well, like your ability to work under pressure and have those can be some. How many HR people do we know that go into startups, somewhere along the way, and there's a lot of cleanup that needs to be done.
A ton.
Yeah. So
if
you've
you're
got
a
to.
startup and you're watching, please contact HR, get a consulting firm, call Humoriso, call somebody like us. You don't want to wait until it's too late. It happens so often for HR people that go into those environments. Absolutely true.
Yeah.
Let me make sure, by the way. Hey, Laura. Hey, Evan. I'm just seeing some people. I'm making sure I'm catching some who are jumping in. So let me ask you this question, because I think this is part of it, I think, for what we do, right? So you have, a business where you're, with HRTech, and actually, before I ask this question, because I'm asking from knowledge, I don't know that everybody knows what HRTech is about. So take a second, if you don't mind, to kind of just share.
Sure. So we're a market intelligence company, and so that is what we do is work with. We do research on one side and track all of the trends, and we're good for 3 to 5 foundational reports about what's happening in talent acquisition or what's happening in HR, who's buying what and why, what's the future look like. We also track all of the growth capital coming into the space and do quarterly reports on that. And that's people
Yeah,
love to follow the money. So that's what
that's so good.
WorkTech is known for, and very active in the whole innovation ecosystem. But the other side is the advisory side. So that is
Mm,
all of that research, who's buying what and why, what kind of capital is coming into the space, who's buying who from a merger and acquisition perspective. That all really feeds the advisory side of the business, which is helping the constituencies in the space, the tech providers of all stages, the investors, and some very smart buyers understand each other.
yeah.
So we're looking to expand our product. What are the opportunities? Should we build? Should we buy? Should we partner? We're a startup. We're going to market. What do we need to do to our product to have that product market fit to be successful, and what are people buying and why? Or we're looking to buy a product. We're looking to understand the landscape of what's available, and not incrementally what's changing right now, which I think there's a lot of that out there. But what's going to happen in the next few years that's going to rock my world? What should I be thinking about? And how do I prepare for that? So that's sort of
It's
how the business.
it's awesome, and thank you, because again, I don't know that everybody knew some of those things, because sometimes we just see some of the reports that are online for those that are following, right? So if you're not connected to WorkTech, by the way, make sure you do that. Hey, Mark, I see you just jumped in. I'll also say though, in that's helpful for me, because I want to ask from an advisory standpoint, right? From a perspective standpoint, let's say there are folks who are here this morning who are thinking about or are just getting going with something from a product standpoint, from a development standpoint, from an innovation standpoint. Um, how would you recommend now, today, in the market that we're in right now? Like, should they have X amount of money in the bank before they think about starting something like this? Is there sort of like a factor that you use when you're like, you should have 100 grand in the bank before you want to start to, any kind of tech development? Is there a number that you use, or a range?
I think it's the specific number is going to vary based on, if it's you're like, I've got an idea. It's me,
Yep.
it's George, and I'm about
Yep.
to like do something.
Yep.
Well, what do I need to live? How long will it take me to get to a prototype or a Figma, which is just a tool. It's like a screenshot product, and a deck to take out to friends and family for investment initially, maybe pre-seed investors, angels. So that number might be it might be based on 6 months of running room, which doesn't sound like a lot. Might be 12 months, depending on what's my background. Am I a first time founder? Am I not a first time founder? It's not my first rodeo, and I've got a partner who I can fall back on, or I don't. Like, you really need to
Yeah.
look at yourself in the mirror and have that conversation about, what kind of risk am I taking? Do I need to go find a technical founder, or am I the technical founder and I need the
Mm-hmm.
business plan person, the operator?
Yep.
Those are the things you need to understand, and understand that those pieces about finding your co-founders are probably a couple of the hardest parts. I haven't seen a lot of startups that have succeeded in our space
Yeah.
where it was the founder who like used an app to find a co-founder, or like went out, on a search for the co-founder. It's more, things happen a little more organically,
Yeah.
where people meet through life experience, work experience, discover each other. It might be that they've never worked together, but they've discovered each other online or something, their body of work or content or whatever. And things develop from there. I'm sure I can be proven wrong with folks who,
Yeah, I mean,
like,
there's always
yeah,
exceptions. I
yeah,
mean, that's not what this is. But I
right,
think if you're somebody sitting back saying this, I know this idea is great, you do have to count the costs to say, like, I remember when I started Humoriso, I was like, look, and I'm, I started it as a consulting firm. I didn't start as a tech product, right? So
right,
it's a services oriented model. It's a consulting firm. It's not Baldino Consulting. I knew I was trying to build something that would be bigger, right? And so I had to look though and say, okay, I've got 6 months in the bank. I've got I needed to kind of count the costs and
yeah,
what resources I already had, and be conservative, because I think like even with tech development, for those that are kind of listening, again, I have experienced where it's not quite, you think the price tag is going to be 40 grand to build this app framework that you might need, and stuff always comes up, and that 40 is 60, extra hours were needed, and you're like, oh, I know what I'll do, I'll offshore it into India and they'll take care of it, and you're like, but wait, you still have to pay people. Like that kind of perspective, I think people don't necessarily have, right? And so seeking out community to help ask those kinds of questions, to say, I have an idea. I've never worked with, offshore developers. I've never raised capital. I don't know where to go for angel investors. How do I ask my family and friends for investment? Like, I'm not that good at that stuff. What do I, like, you need to find a community to ask these questions. So totally agree.
yeah.
But I want to ask this, because I think this is a harder one, and this is the juice and the squeeze bit, right?
Okay.
How does a company know how much they should spend on this kind of stuff? Like, what percentage of the budget should go towards either A, technology as a whole, or B, upgrading technology to things that might seem either trendy or, on the case of AI, right? Stuff is going to become AI more than it is even today, as we progress. So I don't know that you can avoid it. I don't know that we should categorize it as trendy. I know some people still are, but should I think every year like 10% of my budget ought to go to either new product or upgrading?
That's a really good question. I think the way to approach overall, if I'm thinking about making changes, and most companies are right now,
Mm-hmm.
it's what am I paying now, and what am I getting, and then what's the return, right? So one thing that I think HR buyers, talent acquisition buyers need to get a lot better at is really understanding the numbers behind what they're doing and building a business case.
Say it again, my friend.
And
Say it again. Yes.
they need to be able to build a business case. And
Yeah.
it's I've done over the years, that's probably one of the recurring presentations I've been asked to give for folks,
Mm.
is how do you do this? Because we generally don't. It's changing. The in our world, we're getting better, and the profession is evolving. But generally speaking, the folks still in leadership didn't come from places where that's what they were doing. They came from, some come from other parts of the business, but hadn't built a case like that. And now
Yep.
they're in a people, we're good at the people stuff. So that it takes understanding, what the CFO's mindset is, what the founder's mindset is, what the CEO's mindset is, whoever the constituency is that I need to make this case to, and then building a case based on that. And it's not pandering to them. It's understanding how the business runs and how they make how we make decisions.
Yes.
And then understanding that's what I'm going to be measured on. If we're going to invest $1 million in a big new platform in a middle market company, then I need to show clear, hard dollars and cents ROI. If I'm in talent acquisition, I might need to look at my ad spend. I might need to look at my human resources, how many people on the team, and I need to look at my overall budget and how this is going to move us forward. I might be able to make a case for having, if I'm able to make a more qualitative case, I can start to draw lines to faster hiring times, getting recs filled faster, productivity. But in some environments, the CFO nods when they hear all that, but when they go to write a check, they don't want to hear all that. They want to hear about hard numbers. So, what kind of decision am I making? What kind of data do I need to help with that decision? I think an understanding of your overall budget and how technology fits within your budget is really key as well. Like really stepping back and looking at not just the technology budget, but my overall budget and how does that compare to the team? How does that compare to everything involved in the department? And then how is the technology, contributing to the top and bottom line from a business perspective.
And I think you have to not be afraid of finance, like talking to your finance team, like help me. And I know that's a tension for some people because they feel like though I don't understand it. And so if I go to ask for help, I'm giving some street cred away. Listen, give it away. It's not worth that much. Give it away. If you don't understand P&L, if you don't understand the budgeting process, if you don't understand how kind of what the risk factors are that get measured or added on to some contingency budgets and that kind of stuff, like ask. You have to ask. You're never going to learn if you don't. And not every YouTube video on these things is correct. I mean, let's just honestly say it. Now, I've watched some of them and I'm like, I don't think that's correct. Like that, right. The math might be right, but that it's based on a process that's not accurate. So I think it's like important for you to sort of build a bridge within your organization to say, I got to talk to finance. And I know that especially on the HR side, sometimes that's tough for us to do willingly to do that kind of stuff. But if instead, I think sometimes HR shoots ourselves in the foot as an example, because I know there are times where HR has like gone to bat for a particular HRIS, payroll or HR management system, something like that. And they're like, oh, this is going to give me the reporting that I need finally. And I'll be able to do all these wonderful things with the reporting. That may be true. I'm not taking that away. That may be true. But the employee experience of using that platform may be abysmal. And so now HR has made a decision in tech that really just benefits them and didn't really think about anybody else. And the feedback, the engagement surveys, or just whatever feedback is coming through now paints the picture of this system sucks, if the clock in and out system, time management part doesn't work well, or my accruals don't work the way they should, or whatever these things are. When that stuff gets to the business owner or the CEO or the COO or whatever the first line managers are who are constantly just forwarding this feedback to HR, we've just honestly like made ourselves look bad because we're like, well, we didn't really think about what their experience was going to be. We had our little HR group pick our software that we're going to use, and now I'm not going to be trusted for the next tech product that I might recommend. Like that's real. That really happens for some people.
Yeah. No, that's 100%. And I think when it comes to whether it's financial ROI or whether it's any part of the buying decision, I mean, you might be giving away some credibility, but you might also be like investing in building some credibility. So
Yes.
when I walk into, I was with a customer in the last couple of weeks and doing a big strategy session. And we talked about, when I talk about adoption rates, I've got my own data, but I bring adoption rates that from other folks that do what I do in order to substantiate, to bring credibility to the
Yes.
conversation, because you've got to have that level. You're building your credibility by leaning on some others, especially when it comes to finance. It's a great thing to be able to say, well, I worked with the cost accountant to develop this model, and okay,
Yeah.
check, right? We
Check.
know it. We know it
Yes.
works.
Yes. It's been vetted. Yep.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, this is, first of all, this is like the fastest hour in show business. I know that, right? And because it's just flown by, but this has been such a treat, George, honestly, because the perspective that you bring, I always feel like, and I really mean this complimentary. I feel like so much of what you do and know how to do not completely flies under the radar, but you don't get as much, speaking about street cred, as much street cred as I think you should with what it is that you do and what you know and what your experience is. And so I love that this was so like a great opportunity for some people who may never have heard you kind of share or offer these perspectives. Like, I hope you all go out and please follow George on LinkedIn, like follow HRTech, get these reports and just all the stuff that gets put out, because it's pretty brilliant.
Thanks, John.
So yes, like this is so fun to have you do this. And I know that this isn't your normal bag, but first coffee and dancing to Elton John to get things started, right?
I made it through.
Dear diary, I did it. Like super fun. Thank you so much for doing this.
I had a lot of fun. I forgot I was on the podcast a few times there.
Yeah,
so
we're
God
just
knows
chatting.
what I said, but
yes, but that's all right. It now will live on in infamy. Thanks everybody else for watching. Those of you who are going to watch later on, enjoy. Please continue to comment. I do want to remind you all, if you are watching or listening and you are in transition and looking for your next gig, please be sure to put that info in the chat whenever you're watching this, with a link to your profile, so that those who are hiring can kind of see that. So George, my friend, thank you very much. Cheers to you with my But First coffee mug.
Cheers. Oh, got my
Clink to
Pioneer's Dad.
Pioneer's Dad. Oh, there it is. My God.